Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gregtech New Horizons. You guys notice something different here? We can actually see the other side of our base. So our power substation reached the threshold enough to turn off these engines. I have a feeling they're going to be turning back on fairly soon though, as we're going to be using lots and lots of power today in order to run this thing, the assembly line which we built last episode. So we're going to be automating this thing later on today, but first there's a few little projects we need to take care of. Alright, so one of the first things I noticed between episodes is we are constantly out of hydrochloric acid, which we are still making in this MV chemical reactor with hydrogen and chlorine. So I decided between episodes I would add this other chemical reactor right here, the large chemical reactor, so that we can overclock this recipe. And this thing should just make us hydrochloric acid from hydrogen and chlorine. You may notice though that the output hatch and buffer tank is completely empty here. The reason for the shortage is because we have a lack of hydrogen which we make in this LCR. And the reason this thing isn't running is we are out of methane, or methane is just too slow in general. Methane we make in two places. I think it's that distillation tower on the end, and also this guy over here. And this guy we are only running at MV, so I think let's switch this out to at least EV. Alright, that takes the recipe from 6 seconds to just 1 second, so hopefully that should solve our issues. And the introduction of the LCR over there to make hydrochloric acid means that we can remove this setup actually. We do have to keep this advanced distillery here for diluted hydrochloric acid. Although we are going to upgrade the distillery to at least EV tier. Hopefully that should be able to keep up. I noticed a little backlog appearing in this super tank. And one other thing over here. I've reconfigured some of the machines over here to add a mixer, which is going to mix us drilling fluid, and this is something that we use in our multi-block miners to fuel them. I want to be able to send all of this through an ender tank. I'm sure we do have some spares, otherwise oh no, we have 3 extra, that's perfect. I think these we will dye orange for the drilling fluid, and this stuff will filter straight into the ender tank here. Relocating the multi-block miners is something that we're going to be doing much more frequently, as the resource requirements for LUV are going to be insane. I feel like this guy should have finished by now, right? Oh yeah, and he even has maintenance issues. Okay, you're coming with me. But yeah, whenever we relocate these things, it means that we don't have to lug about all of this stuff, the stone dust, the lubricant, the mixer, all of this. We can just place an ender tank on the input hatch instead. So we are back here on Europa. We haven't been here for a while. I think this is where originally we got all of our platinum. But we are back here to mine some Ledex ores, mainly for the byproduct of rubrasium, which we can use for samarium, which is that big long processing line I mentioned last episode. Oh yeah, already this is so much easier to set up now. This is basically us done, right? We just have to hook up the fuel lines, our new ender tank for the drilling fluid, which goes right here, give it some maintenance, and that's basically it. Much more compact than it was before. Let's make sure we cover it though, just in case we get a meteor strike. It's unlikely since the player has to be in the area, but still, I don't want to take the chance here. Alright, so it's been a little while for me. I've been hanging out here at ore processing actually, and there is one little change I made here, and that is the addition of this GT++ centrifuge, replacing our PA. And the reason I've done this is to get the samarium out of the rubrasium we just picked up. I was under the impression last episode that it was any GT++ multi-block, which is why we now have the maceration stack. But I was realizing that we weren't actually getting any samarium, so yeah, it turns out that it's only the centrifuge that gives it in this version of the game. I have also been testing out how robust this system is by hooking this up straight from the outputs of our miners. So everything comes from the miners in this ender chest, and then straight into the input of ore processing. I wanted to make sure these drawers didn't fill up, and we weren't like backing up on input items, and it seems to be holding up alright, at least with 2 miners. Although I do plan to add some more in the future. And also as soon as we can upgrade to the tier 3, which does take the LUV components in the assembly line. Speaking of the assembly line, I think it's time we tackle this project. It's going to be huge. And there's so many unknowns in this that I don't know what to do about, so I think this is going to be fun. Let's do this. Alright, first of all, let us actually unlock the LUV quest tab. We smelted some of this rhodium plated palladium last episode. A stack should get us into LUV. First step for us is to make the machine hull. Going to be adding patterns for everything from here on out. And we'll do this in the assembling machine with polytetrafluoroethylene. So we'll need a plate recipe for that as well. The machine hull goes in the PTFE assembler. And we'll also need the machine casing pattern here. And the cable at this tier is vanadium gallium, but we have a little bit of that backlogged. Here we have our first LUV machine. Well, not machine hull. And also the first quest of LUV. Oh, and we get 2 loot bags apparently. From what I heard, it's not worth enchanting these things, so I think we're just going to open them. Yep, absolutely useless. Look. Oh man, what a start to this tier. Alright, so I've been encoding all the recipes we need for the robot arm, electric piston, electric motor, and electric pumps. It's basically HSSS in almost every form you can get it in. But we are missing a few recipes here. The first one is we need a way to make the HSSS round. And there's 3 ways we can do it. In the crafting table with tools, but this is very inefficient. We can do it in the fluid solidifier or the lathe. And I think the one we're going to be going with is the fluid solidifier. So we need an extractor and a solidifier here. I guess we put the interface on the back of the machine. This is going to be extractor, solidifier, rounds, HV. Or no, I think we were doing machine tier, then component, yeah. And so it's 18 litres of HSSS to make 1 round. Therefore, I think we can get 8 out of 1 ingot. We just have to set the recipe manually here. Actually, you know what? It's probably more efficient to use the tiny interface, this one, and put it on the side instead. I just didn't want to connect to this since it would have too many channels on this one line. Something like that should work though. And we can power the machine from behind. The other recipe we're missing is yttrium barium cuprate. We looked at this briefly last episode. We need a mixer with oxygen. So we actually have our IV one sitting right here. All we have to do is hook up the fluid connection, filter inside oxygen, and encode the pattern for yttrium barium cuprate, which is a blast furnace recipe, so we're going to be waiting on this a little while. Since we set up our automations of yttrium last episode, we're up to over 1,000 yttrium dust, which is really, really nice considering it's only a chance output at a tiny pile. So I think we'll go for like 256 to start with. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff queued in our blast furnace right now, so I don't want to go too crazy with the queue. Alright, I think after the yttrium barium, we're only missing this magnetic samarium round. So we are getting trickles of samarium through our ore processing system, but we need to make this magnetic. And as you can see, this is an IV recipe. We definitely don't have an IV polarizer, so we're going to have to make one here. It's actually a really, really cheap machine. Oh, and a quest. We'll need a recipe for the rod, and the polarizer can just sit next to our mixer here. Oh, apparently if you extrude the magnetic version, it gives you the regular version. So I think we're going to have to do this backwards. Yeah, rod first, then polarize. Also, just while I remembered all of our wire recipes, I think I'm going to double up to at least do 4 at a time. Since we're now doing parallelization, it won't send just 1 at a time and therefore slow it down. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but trust me, this is a good idea. Alright, so I think we've got all the items automated for this assembly line, at least for the LUV components. There is 2 more things that we have to consider here. There is also the fluids, which we'll come back to, and also the scan result. According to the quest here, we're going to need something called the data access hatch, and we can craft the basic one, although the quest recommends going up to the advanced, which we can actually make right away now that we have the LUV machine hull. Alright, we're going to need 4 more ZPM circuits. I don't know how many of those we still have. Apparently 2. Okay, can we get 2 more? Yeah, easy. Easy. We also need the high capacity data orbs, which is made in the circuit assembler, RAM, NOR, NAND, fine platinum wire, HV circuits, and advanced circuit boards. We can do that, just need a recipe I think. And we'll request 4 of these things. So once we have the access hatch, we're going to need something to put inside them. So if we check the recipe for the electric motor here, we can see a second page with the scanner. We have to scan the IV version and put it on the data stick. Stick the data stick inside the assembly line and then it knows how to craft the LUV version. And you can see by the time here, this is 7,000 seconds for 1 LUV motor. I mean, we only have to do this once per recipe, but still, that's a very long time. So we're definitely going to want the best scanner we can make right now, which I think for us is IV. Yeah, we can't make the LUV one since we need the emitter and sensor. So we do need the IV one. Oh no, this takes an emitter and sensor IV. And this takes quantum stars, takes nether stars. Oh boy, do we have any of those already? We don't have an emitter. We don't have the sensor. Oh great. Do we have any nether stars? Just 1. Alright, well that was easy. I got the nether stars here, and I've added this chemical bath here with radon so that we can put in a pattern for the quantum stars. In fact, we'll just do it manually. We want these all. I got some extra since we're going to need some more for the LUV emitter and sensor later on. And I'm not sure if scanning it voids the item or not, so I'd rather not take the chance. We got extra. I also noticed we get an enchanted LUV loot bag. Let's see if they're as bad as their reputation claims they are. Oh, oh, that is nice. That is nice. I believe we can also pick up our data access hatch and get our quest. Let's also go ahead and pick up the sensor and emitter, and also our IV scanner. Alright, let's start with the basic LUV components. We'll start with the piston, I think. So we want the data stick in the slot, and it's 450 seconds per component. Alright, not bad. Better than 7,000. We will also need the pump, the robot arm, which we still have to craft, and also the motor. I guess while we wait on all the scanning, let's think about how we're going to automate this assembly line. I think more or less our only option is to go with the processing pattern terminal. Although, as you may notice here, this does take LUV machine components, which means we're going to have to craft some of the things manually. So I have some of the LUV components encoded, minus the fluids, which we can add in later on. For now, we're just going to stick the patterns in this interface here, which should dump all the items in the chest. So if, for example, we order the piston, which I think we should have scanned already, we're missing a yttrium barium cuprate wire recipe. Okay, let's see if all of the automation works here, and it's 12 HSSS per piston. Actually, how is our HSSS looking? We're at 81 ingots. Oh, wait a second. We're still running these two blast furnaces at EV here. Yeah, no wonder they were taking so... Okay, let's stop this. Alright, I switched out some of the wiring underneath, and they're now running at IV. 75 seconds is a little bit more tolerable for these things. Before we go using all our Ruridit, let's make sure to pick it up for the quest. Oh. Oh no, do we need all the prerequisites as well? If that's the case, we're going to have to find out which machine actually makes this stuff. Oh boy, is it this one here? No, this is palladium. Oh no. Alright, hold on a second. Let me find out what's going on here. Alright, we got the first two quests. We're waiting on 75 seconds for this distillation tower. I forgot how slow some of this process was. I guess this is a good chance to check for maintenance though. I think we're good. I do check these every single day, and there's almost always at least one with maintenance issues. It looks like not tonight though. Well, that took a while. This should be 2 quests, I think. There we go. Oh, and look at this. We are properly rewarded. We get 2 enchanted IV loot bags. And 2 more for rhodium plated palladium as well. So we get 4 enchanted bags. Oh, oh my goodness, we're getting so lucky with these ender tanks. Oh, that is crazy. That is crazy good. Nice. That kind of makes up for the 10 minutes I stood at those blast furnaces. Let's see if we can get the assembly line running. We got all the data sticks scanned here, at least for the basic components. So these, I believe, have to go into the data access hatch, which effectively teaches the assembly line the recipe. I noticed we have some maintenance issues still, but should be easy to fix with some tape. I've also hooked up some little buffer tanks that we can fill manually with lubricant and soldering alloy. 2 of the fluids we need for the LUV stuff, although later down the line for ZPM we're going to need different fluids, varying fluids. So this is only a temporary setup here. So let's put all the automation to the test here. Let's see if we can make an electric motor at LUV. All the components should end up in this chest right here. And we also have to fill in the fluids in order here. So the first one is solder and alloy, second one is lubricant, which I'm assuming goes front to back here. First one is solder and alloy, second one is lubricant. And there's a maximum of 4 fluid inputs on the assembly line. I think we got all the items here in this chest. So again, these have to be placed in order. First is samarium, then the long rod, 2 stacks of Ruridit wire, and the yttrium barium cable. Let's double check we're giving this thing power. Last thing we want is to void the items. That's really the only thing that can go wrong here is the power, really. I think we're good. Everything looks connected underneath here. Let's see if it runs. Oh, it's going. It's going. It looks like the data thing worked. 15 seconds is not too bad, honestly. Ah, electric motor LUV, which means we just have to repeat this process a few more times until we can get the pattern terminal in order to fully automate this thing. Oh, and I missed the recipe for the conveyor. Great. Let me go and fix that. There it is, you're really gonna hate this. We made all of the basic LUV components. The thing we want to work towards next is the LUV assembler. We need this in order to make the pattern terminal, which can allow us to encode the recipes for the assembly line. Or actually, wait a second, we don't need this. Oh no, we do, yeah, for the item processor, that's right. This has to be LUV. So like all of the assembling machines, we're gonna need 2 robot arms and 2 conveyors. And right now we have 1 of each. The only problem is we are completely out of Ruridit. Almost completely out of Ruridit. So I think it's time once again that we adjust some of these blast furnaces. I was doing some testing here and routed it in HSSS is only 104 seconds compared with HSSG, where I think it's 204 or 205. So I'm going to do some swapping about here, and I think I'm going to build another array like this. We're still not at a point where we can get the mega blast furnace just yet, but I don't want to wait too long before we invest in that thing. Alright, I've been messing with the blast furnaces a little bit, I'll show you that in a second. But first of all, we're going to make another ender chest. And the reason for the ender chest is I've went ahead and made a new ore drilling plant. This is actually our third tier 2. Although which colour does this need to be? I think it's yellow. We really could do with some more tin dust actually. So I think for now we're going to try and find a spot for us in the overworld. But we are getting close to the next tier of rocket, so I want to make sure we have all our miners available for the next tier of planets. At least if it's here, it's easy to come back and collect, even if it's not finished. Okay, no tin vein, but we actually got one better. I managed to find this double manganese vein for tantalite, so we're going to pick this up instead. We'll also have to see how ore processing keeps up with 3 multi-block miners now. Hopefully we don't have any jams in that thing. Oh look, it's our old crucible, I forgot this was here. Is there anything in here? No. Oh, I guess all the flux has disappeared from here. Alright, anyways, back over at these blast furnaces here, I've rearranged some things as I mentioned. And we now have rarity, tungsten steel, vanadium gallium, and rhodium plate palladium on passive. Still not the dusts though, we still have to batch craft the dusts, but you know. I also realized here that we missed stainless steel the first time. This is where tungsten steel used to be. So tungsten steel is now over at this one, oops. And we also have this one on the right hand side, which is for auto crafting. We have a bunch of patterns in here for various different metals we can send through the blast furnace. Yes, I know, on-demand blast furnaces. Don't worry, it's not forever, but it does make it a bit easier. Think of it like batch crafting, except instead of placing everything in the chest, we just order it through AE instead. Anyways, I think we now actually have all the rarity. I've been crafting 1 or 2 extra of these components. We just need our 1 extra robot arm. Awesome, and I think 1 more conveyor. Oh, there's something satisfying about flicking that lever. I do want to get this fully automated though. Any second now, there's our conveyor module. I think now we're only missing 2 more LUV circuits, which we should be able to do no problem at all. Okay, I wonder, is there anything else we missed for this processing pattern terminal? Oh, I guess we're going to need another set, not just for the assembling machine. We're going to need more robot arms, 2 more conveyors, 2 more motors, and also this item processor, which is the forming press. Oh, this is IV, oh no. Oh no, laser engraver LUV. No, no, no. No, I didn't expect this. Okay. Okay, first of all, the assembling machine. LUV assembler. Okay, so now back to this item processor. The first step is quite easy. It's just an emerald plate, redstone chipset, and this can be done at HV, so we actually already have a forming press for this. The engraved quantum chip, unless we build a large processing factory and overclock this GT++ machine, which is arguably more expensive than the LUV laser engraver. Oh, this is also another emitter. I think we're gonna have to bite the bullet and make one of these things. Wait a second, what is this? Gallium foil? No, we can manage this, it's just gonna take a lot of crafting, alright. We need 2 temporary patterns for the sensor and emitter. Oh, and this is the wrong circuit. Yeah, I don't know what these magneto circuits are used for. I guess they're a replacement for the LUVs. And we're missing the rarity plate and rod recipe. We can do this at HV, right? Oh yeah, even LV. Nice. All these crafts are getting very, very large now. We've almost outgrown our AE2 upgrades that we made, I think just 2 episodes ago. You know what? Our PSS has drained a lot this episode. Look, it's down to 17 billion. Although in theory, we should be able to cold start this. I don't think we need power to start these engines. Well, we knew it was coming, but yes, this advanced circuit assembler is the huge bottleneck in our crafting now. Alright, this should be the components for our emitter. 3 gallium foil, yttrium cable. Oh no, it doesn't work. I guess they're in the wrong order. Or maybe it's different fluids? Does it work now? Oh, you know what it was? We didn't scan the data for it. That's what the issue was. And the components for IV forming press have finished. Don't think this is a quest though. This thing can go right next to our scanner here. Okay, do you work now? 1 LUV sensor. And also our emitter, which should give us You're Really Gonna Hate This 5 and 6. Aha, this opens up the laser engraver quest. Although it is just the checkbox, I guess it is accounting for the fact you can make the LPF. I think we will make the single block for this. I love how everything takes 15 seconds here. Everything just 15 seconds. Although I did notice that we have another issue here. Exact same as last time, we are out of rarity again. Even though we now have 2 blast furnaces on the case, HSSS and IV, 104 seconds each, it's still gonna take a little while. This should be a robot arm though, yeah. Although in the meantime, I think I'm going to set up the infrastructure for the automation for this thing, as there is some other wiring and things we have to get set up underneath here. Alright, I think we got all the wiring now in place for this assembly line. Big thank you to Alex Doru, the build was heavily inspired by him. Modified slightly to fit our needs right here, but yeah, I'll leave a link to the original on this in the description. It looks maybe a little bit complex, but it's actually quite easy when you break this down. And we're going to go over this in a second, but first of all, let's try to get this pattern terminal. So it's been quite a few hours for me actually. Hopefully this Rudit is actually finished in this blast furnace. It's still cooking away, which isn't a bad sign, but I don't know if we have enough yet. It looks like we do have enough material for the laser engraver LUV. Awesome, second favourite machine in the game now, after the processing array. With this we need a yellow garnet lens, which we have in here. How are we going to power this thing though is the question. We don't really have many LUV lines in our base. I mean, I guess it can go down here next to our assembling machine. So we need exquisite yellow garnet, which we only have one of by the way, so hopefully this doesn't void. 60 seconds. Looks like the emerald chipset did also finish here. So the emerald chipset along with this quantum, I forget the name of this, engraved quantum chip, must go through this IV forming press. I'm sure there's got to be a quest for this somewhere, right? I mean surely there has to, oh yeah, it's over all the way over here. I guess this is what unlocks the 4096k crafting storages. We did skip a few tiers though, we haven't even gotten the 64Ks yet. Anyways, this along with an engineering processor goes through our assembling machine, the brand new one, and we get the item processor tier 4. We'll get the quest later on. Now we just need the other few LUV components, which we have just finished crafting there, and there we have it, the processing pattern terminal. This has to be the most expensive applied energistics 2 component. Oh man, this should be our quest. So this terminal gives us a 4x4 with 4 output slots as well. And apparently there's the switch toggle, which I didn't actually realise, which if I'm reading correctly is 4 in, 16 out. So let me explain exactly why we needed this terminal. So if we look at the motor once again, we also have 250 litres of lubricant and 144 litres of soldering alloy. But since for different recipes there are varying fluids, we can't just fill the input buses like what we have been doing. We can't, for example, just keep the soldering alloy in slot 1. Since, as we saw earlier, the fluids have to be in order, which means that we have to clear this out after every craft. Potentially. So to get around that issue, I've built us this little area over here. It wasn't really doing much. So we have a few tanks right here, which we are going to fill with our soldering alloy and lubricant. We just need an AE connection over here. One of the reasons I actually placed it here, since we have plenty of channels on this line. So we can place a fluid P2P in the middle. We have to link this to our fluid P2P network, which I think the input is still this one over here. Our very first P2P tunnel. Okay, so these tanks right here, we're just going to use as a separate buffer. And we have 3 more for any extra fluids that we want in the future as well. So the thing we're going to use actually to transport the fluid in exact quantities is volumetric flasks. Not something we normally do actually, but this is probably the perfect use case for these. These are effectively used like the empty cells, but the empty cells only ever carry 1 bucket. With these, we can configure them in an assembly machine and change their rate from 1000 millibuckets down to 250 or 288, 720. There's varying amounts of caps on the fluid. And if we look at some of the recipes here, a lot of them are 144, which is 1 ingot, 250, 576. I mean, these are all really awkward amounts of fluid. Okay, we got 24 of each, a 250, a 144, and a 576, which I think is all we need for the moment. So now when we come back to the processing pattern terminal for the electric motor, we need 250 lubricant and 144 soldering alloy. So we're going to need a separate pattern for those, and I think we have to fill them manually the first time. Yeah, let's take at least 1 of each fluid amount. And we want a regular processing pattern terminal, which is going to be 144 of the empty volumetric flask equals 144 soldering alloy, like so. And 250 lubricant and then the empty 250 cell. And these patterns that we just made are going to go into 2 interfaces on these fluid tanks. Lubricant is in the first one and soldering alloy in the second. And we just have to plug these in underneath. Oh man, these conduits connect to everything. Every single time. We also need conveyor modules on the export of the tank, the same side as the interface. And we want allow input on these things. Okay, so now in our AE system, we should be able to request these values of the volumetric flask. So now that we have the correct volumes of the volumetric flasks, we can include these in the pattern. Although we have to be careful here, this has to be in order. It has to be the solder and alloy first. Yeah, fluids have to be first in the recipe here, which means we're going to have to manually shift over everything to spaces. I believe AE2 sends items left to right, top to bottom. And it's going to look something like this instead. So this new pattern that we just created here with the volumetric flasks is going to go in this bottom interface right here. Everything you can see here on uncolored cable, just the regular Fluix, is from our main network. This is our P2P, which is connected to our main controller. And all the white cable here, I maybe should have made it a different color. All the white cable is on the subnet of the assembly line. So what we have here is a quartz fiber to pass the power through. And then connected to the interface with the pattern inside is a P2P tunnel on item mode. This is the input side. This is what's going to take the items when AE2 sends the pattern contents. And then on each input hatch of the assembly line, we have a storage bus. On every single one under here, this one on the end is the output bus. And we also have regular storage buses on these fluid tanks, which then have pumps on them to export their fluids into the input hatch. In fact, we should take all the fluids out here by now. On the ones with the tanks, we have a fuzzy card, which ignores NBT, and we want to filter in the volumetric flasks in here also. So that hopefully no matter which volume we send in here, it should be prioritized to these ones first. And then starting from the first input hatch, since this is the first item that we want in the pattern, the first fluid, this is on priority 17, next one is on 16, 15, 14, this is 13, 12, 11, etc. all the way down. And this is how we get the items in the assembly line in order, which is why it's important to place the fluids in the top slot of the pattern. I think the last thing is to make sure the blocking mode is enabled on this interface, and I think that is all. We have another interface, our P2P right here, which is connected to that one, and there's also another P2P on an interface here. This is just so that it can read the contents of input bus 1 and make sure that blocking mode is taken into account so that it will not send items if there's anything in this input bus. Alright, let's try this out. Let's see if we can get a motor. It's going to craft the flasks. Aha, it did work. Alright, nice. So we got 144 solder and alloy, exact amounts for the recipe, 250 lubricant. The volumetric flasks stayed in these fluid tanks, which is what the conduits below are for. We want these on extract blue. And this will recycle the flasks, those all go into this interface, which is on our main network, and all the items ended up in order on these input buses. Oh, perfect. Then when we hit the lever, which will be removed by the way, it's just so that we can test, 15 seconds, and all the items should end up in the output bus, which is also on the same item conduit, and get sent back to the interface to complete the craft. So we should have a clear crafting screen, and one LUV motor. Success! Now we just have like all these patterns to redo with the fluids. But that is something I'm going to work on between the episodes. I think we're going to wrap this one up here. Actually some pretty good progress through LUV here as well today. And I think in the near future we're going to be tackling this line here, which is for an Aquada. Maybe we'll do the next tier of rocket. I don't know, there's so much for us to do. Oh look, the engines are back on. It's good to know that they turn on automatically. Here comes the smog again. Anyways, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all soon for some more Gregtech New Horizons.